I'm very happy to be here. And just think, nobody thought this would last.
1994 was a pretty crazy year from start to finish, with many significant pop culture moments that are still being talked about and referenced today. 1994 is seen by many as one of the most influential and memorable years that we've ever experienced. I actually wasn't there to experience any of these things in real time because, you know, I wasn't alive yet, but I'm very aware of a good handful of events that took place this year. Throughout the year, we witnessed a wide variety of many major pop culture events that took place, including larger-than-life film releases, the rise of grunge culture and popular music, groundbreaking television premieres, the slow rise of this new thing called the internet, crazy sports moments, celebrity scandals, and even a highly publicized car chase, making this year very memorable. You just had to be there, as this year was just full of many notable events that had a major impact on society. With so many iconic events that took place, this year is arguably what most consider to be the peak of the 1990s decade, as well as civilization as a whole. This just seemed like a fun time to be alive, especially if you were in your adolescence or a young adult finding your way. I just find this year to be so interesting and thought it would be fun to take a look back at what life was like during one of the most iconic, chaotic, and memorable years of the 1990s. Like I mentioned earlier, 1994 was a pretty stacked year from start to finish, with some of the most memorable and iconic pop culture moments to ever exist. This year just felt like one bold statement after the other, where everything seemed larger than life, complex, daring, yet simple at the same time. 1994 saw the rise of many popular websites including AOL, and the launch of Netscape Navigator, Yahoo, Hotwired, and many more. As the internet was becoming more popular and accessible, the Sega Saturn was released towards the tail end of the year, to later be surpassed in popularity with the release of the first PlayStation gaming console later that year in Japan. The PlayStation was one of the biggest advances in modern technology during the 90s, but I'll save that for a 1995 review whenever I get to that year. Some of the most popular video games that were released this year included Doom 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Earthbound, Final Fantasy VI, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Virtua Fighter 2, Super Meteoroid, and Donkey Kong Country, amongst many others. In sports, the Dallas Cowboys defeated the Buffalo Bills 30-13 at this year's Super Bowl, while they became the 5th team to win back-to-back Super Bowl titles. The Houston Rockets won their first NBA championship, defeating the New York Knicks 4-3, and the New York Rangers were the Stanley Cup champions. After a brief stint in baseball, Michael Jordan returned to the NBA on March 18th of this year, rejoining the Chicago Bulls. Pete Sampras, Conchita Martinez, Andre Agassi, and Sanchez Vicario were some of the hottest tennis players this year, while Ernie Els was this year's US Open golf champion. At this year's World Series, there was actually no winner as the MLBA members were on strike, which further caused the games to be canceled. The cancellation actually marked the second time, and to date last, where a World Series was not played in a given season, and the first since 1904. During the Royal Rumble, Lex Luger and Bret Hart were named co-winners after simultaneously eliminating each other, while Yokozuna later defeated The Undertaker in a casket match to retain the WWF Championship. The Winter Olympics were held in Norway, where Russia went home with the most gold medals that year. Some of the major winners included Johan Olav Kaas, Rennie Schneider, Marcus Wasmir, Bonnie Blair, Oksana Bowell, Miriam Bedard, and Nancy Kerrigan, amongst many others, which, speaking of, Nancy Kerrigan and Tonya Harding were amongst two of the most talented and up-and-coming figure skaters who were on their way to becoming the next big thing in figure skating until disaster struck. On January 6th, a masked man used a baton to strike Kerrigan on her landing knee, later to find out that he was actually hired by Tonya Harding's at the time husband to do this crime, which is just so crazy. Kerrigan was injured, but she later recovered just in time for the Olympics that year. Harding and Kerrigan both participated in in the 1994 Winter Olympics, but after the games, Harding was permanently banned from competitive figure skating, which is just so unfair. At the Olympics, Kerrigan won the silver medal in a controversial showdown with gold medal winner Oksana Bal. And I know somebody in the comments is gonna say that I butchered her name, but it's okay. It's okay, I'm trying. I'm really trying, y'all. Due to this incident, Tonya's career and public image never recovered, which is just so unfortunate because she was blamed for something that she didn't do. But then again, the media loves pitting women against each other for whatever reason. Throughout the year, we witnessed many shocking celebrity scandals, gossip, and drama that are still being referenced and talked about today. Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley announced to the world that they were married at this year's MTV Video Music Awards after months of media speculation. Adam Horovitz of the Beastie Boys was sentenced to 200 hours of community service for attacking a television cameraman during a funeral service for River Phoenix months earlier. Madonna dropped the F-bomb 14 times on The Late Show with David Letterman, as well as several attempts to later make the host smell her underwear, which was just so on brand for her. While Aaliyah and R. Kelly were secretly married. R. Kelly was actually 28 and Aaliyah was 16 at the time of their marriage, which is just so... Yeah, this was just so bizarre and inappropriate, but the two would go on to annul their marriage the following year. Lisa Left Eye Lopez of TLC set fire to then boyfriend Andre Rison's sneakers, which resulted in his $1 million mansion burning down. Lisa was later sentenced to 5 years probation, therapy at a halfway house, and was charged with first-degree arson. Whoopi Goldberg hosted this year's Oscars for the first time, which was viewed by 48 million people, and this ceremony was actually the first to present the annual In Memoriam tribute. Schindler's List dominated the night, winning 7 awards including Best Picture, Best Writing, and Best Directing. Other big winners from the night included Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, Holly Hunter, Tommy Lee Jones, Anna Paquin, Jane Champion, and Bruce Springsteen, as well as many others. This was also the year where Angela Bassett got her first of many Oscar noms and snubs for her role in What's Love Got to Do with It. To be fair, this year's category was stacked, so her not winning this year, I'm okay with, but you know, she's acted in so many iconic roles over the years and never won an Oscar, which is just crazy to me, but I digress. At this year's Grammys, we saw many artists break numerous records and win many awards. Some of the notable winners included Sting for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance for his hit If I Ever Lose My Faith in You, Selena for Best Mexican American Album, Alan Menken and Tim Rice for Song of the Year for A Whole New World, Peebo Bryson and Regina Bell for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocals, also for A Whole New World, and Toni Braxton for Best New Artist, as well as many others. Audrey Hepburn became the 5th person to become an EGOT winner and the first person to complete the status posthumously, which is just iconic. The biggest winner of the night was none other than the voice herself, Whitney Houston, who went home with 3 awards. She actually had a pretty clean sweep with many in the main categories, including Record of the Year and Best Female Pop Vocal for her smash hit I Will Always Love You, which, speaking of, she opened the ceremony with a show-stopping performance of the song, making it one of the best in Grammy's history. She was also awarded the coveted Album of the Year for her monumental soundtrack for The Bodyguard, making her the 2nd Black female artist to win this award right after Natalie Cole, who won back in 1992. Throughout the year, Whitney Houston had several notable live performances, including the FIFA World Cup closing ceremony, the American Music Awards, and performed for Nelson Mandela at the White House, honoring his recent election. She also performed 3 concerts in South Africa to honor President Mandela, playing to more than 200,000 people, which made her the first major musician to visit the newly unified and apartheid-free nation following Mandela's winning election. Now enjoy these random red carpet looks from the year. 1994 saw the births of many millennial superstars including Dakota Fanning, Harry Styles, Charlie Heaton, Boo Boo Stewart, Aaron Pierre, Madeline Pesh, Joseph Quinn, Camila Mendes, Kali Uchis, Lil Baby, Drewski, Jake T. Austin, J-Hope, Ava Max, Halsey, Nat Wolff, Jordan Fisher, Bad Bunny, and Justin Bieber, as well as many others. This year we also mourned the losses of many celebrities including ex-president Richard Nixon, John Candy, Ralph Ellison, Simpson, Burt Lancaster, Cesar Romero, Jessica Tandy, Jacqueline Kennedy, William Conrad, Raul Julia, Ardian Senna, Harry Nilsson, and Jeffrey Dahmer, as well as many others. Kurt Cobain, who was the lead singer of popular band Nirvana, actually ended up being the biggest celebrity death story of the year. In early April of this year, Kurt unfortunately lost his life due to offing himself with a firearm, which is just so sad. I'm not gonna go into details because, you know, YouTube doesn't allow me to talk about that kind of stuff, but if you're a fan or old enough to remember, I'm assuming you already know what happened. Prior to his death, he was actually struggling with addictions, depression, and the pressures of fame, including a tumultuous marriage to Courtney Love. And his passing really shook the entertainment industry, as he was still a young rising star who hadn't fully reached his potential yet, as he was only 27 at the time. Many saw him as a voice for Generation X and is widely recognized as one of the most influential rock musicians ever. On June 17th, 1994, millions watched as O.J. Simpson led police on a low-speed chase in a white Ford Bronco following the murder of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman. This sparked outrage and curiosity as many Americans debated for months as to what they think really happened. And to this day, it remains an unresolved mystery where nobody really knows what happened. O.J. Simpson and his lawyers would then go on what would become the televised trial of the century, and I'll save that trial for a 1995 video whenever I get to that year. This was easily the most talked about pop culture story of the year and of the 1990s decade, and remains today as one of the most notable trials in American history. From start to finish, 1994 was a pretty stacked year for the film industry. This year is widely considered to be one of Hollywood's best years for cinema during the post-Golden Age era, setting the standard for the movies of the modern age. There were several legendary films released this year, making this one of the best lineups we've ever seen. Throughout the year, we witnessed many major blockbusters that saw massive success at the box office and became instant classics upon release. This year, we witnessed the launch of new studios, directorial debuts, comebacks, as well as some major breakout stars. Some notable breakout stars in film this year included Cameron Diaz, Ewan McGregor, French Stewart, Rachel Weisz, Kate Winslet, Andy Serkis, Sandra Oh, Haley Joel Osment, and Natalie Portman, amongst many other big names. But one breakout star that really stood out this year from everyone was the legendary Jim Carrey. During the first few years of the 90s, Jim Carrey starred as a regular in the American Goofy sketch comedy In Living Color, amongst many other big names.
Pipes, cigarettes, #1 cause of domestic fires. Let me show you something.
By 1994, he starred in several films that elevated his star power, making him one of the most famous and sought-out actors in Hollywood at the time. Throughout the year, he starred in not one, not two, but 3 major films that were amongst some of the most popular film releases of the year. Those films were Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask. You just had to be there, as he became the biggest breakout star of the year and was just everywhere in 1994. All of these films were box office smashes, with The Mask being the highest grossing of the 3. The Mask quickly became the 4th highest grossing film of 1994, which made it the most profitable film based on a comic up to that point. With his over-the-top, energetic, slapstick comedy, Jim Carrey quickly became a household name and one of the most popular male actors of the 90s decade.
Hey, maybe I'll give you a call sometime. Your number's still 911? Alrighty then.
Okay, now let's talk about the big 3. 1994 saw the release of 3 major blockbusters that had a massive impact on the entertainment landscape. Forrest Gump, The Shawshank Redemption, and The Lion King were hands down the most notable film releases of this year. These 3 films are arguably seen by many as the best of the best to ever exist in the history of cinema. With their larger-than-life cinematography, soundtracks, art direction, characters, and relatable storytelling, these films would all go on to become massive pop culture phenomenons and instant classics overnight. The big 3 from this year are considered to be the most well-received, influential, and groundbreaking films of all time. The Shawshank Redemption is an American prison drama based on the 1982 Stephen King novella Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. The film tells the story of banker Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins, who's sentenced to life in Shawshank State Penitentiary for the murders of his wife and her lover, despite his claims of innocence. While in prison, prison, he befriends a fellow prisoner, contraband smuggler Ellis Redding, played by Morgan Freeman, and becomes instrumental in a money laundering operation led by the prison warden. This film had many stars including Bob Gunton, William Sadler, Clancy Brown, Gil Bellows, and James Whitmore, amongst many other big names. Despite being considered a box office disappointment, earning only $16 million during its initial theatrical run, the film was praised by critics and fans for its storytelling, setting, and acting by Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins. To this day, The Shawshank Redemption has a cult following and is seen as one of the greatest prison films ever created. On June 15, 1994, Walt Disney Animation Studios released their 32nd animated film, The Lion King, to theaters with great success. This was during the Disney Renaissance of the 1990s when they were just creating banger after banger. You just had to be there. Every movie that they dropped back in the 90s was just chef kiss. Fun fact, but throughout production, the creative team actually visited Kenya for research and inspiration, which greatly enhanced the entirety of the film. It features an ensemble voice cast consisting of Matthew Broderick, James Earl Jones, Jeremy Irons, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Myra Kelly, Nikita Callum, Whoopi Goldberg, and Rowan Atkinson, as well as many others. The film follows a young lion, Simba, who flees his kingdom when his father, King Mufasa, is murdered by his uncle, Scar. After growing up in exile, Simba returns home to confront his uncle and reclaim his throne as the Lion King. Upon release, The Lion King was praised by critics for its music, story, characters, themes, and animation. Grossing $763 million globally, it became the highest grossing film of 1994 and the second highest grossing film of all time behind Jurassic Park, released the previous year. It held the title for highest grossing animated film until it was surpassed by Finding Nemo in 2003. The film remains the highest grossing traditionally animated film of all time, as well as being the best-selling film on home video, having sold over 55 million copies worldwide. It later won 2 Academy Awards, as well as the Golden Globe Award for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, which, speaking of, Elton John and Tim Rice were brought on the project as songwriters, while Hans Zimmer provided the musical score. The soundtrack included many well-known classics such as I Just Can't Wait to Be King, Be Prepared, Can You Feel the Love Tonight, Hakuna Matata, and the most iconic Disney song of all time, The Circle of Life, which has to be the most iconic opening from any movie. This is arguably Disney's best soundtrack and most successful next to the Frozen soundtrack. Due to its worldwide success, The Lion King launched a multi-billion-dollar franchise, including a Broadway adaptation, 2 direct-to-video follow-ups, 2 television series, theme park attractions, video games, toys, books, and a photorealistic live-action remake that nobody wanted. To this day, The Lion King is considered by many to be the greatest and most iconic animated film ever made, as well as being Disney's greatest achievement. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Tom Hanks established himself as a household name, starring in a variety of hit films including Splash, The Money Pit, Big, A League on Their Own, and Philadelphia. In the summer of 1994, he would star as the title role of the iconic Forrest Gump. This film elevated his status in Hollywood, later making him a cultural icon. Forrest Gump was released on July 6, 1994, where it received widespread critical acclaim for its heartfelt story, direction, performances, visual effects, music, and screenplay. The film follows the life of an Alabamian man. The film follows the life of an Alabama man named Forrest Gump, played by Tom Hanks, and his experiences in the 20th century United States. And this is just one of those iconic movies that's a must-see at least once in your lifetime, as it's a staple in 90s pop culture. It's also one of those movies that wouldn't work in today's cancel culture climate for being somewhat mean-spirited, especially with Forrest, who, you know, is, not the brightest. Besides including some moments that haven't aged the best over time, it's one of the most quotable films ever, with memorable lines like "Run, Forrest, run," or "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get." Lines that are pretty much engraved in everyone's mind, that are still quoted and referenced today. Forrest Gump is a dim-witted man with a below-average IQ that usually gets him in some rather sticky situations. Despite his shortcomings, his positive and friendly character traits bring him into many life-changing situations where he makes an impact on everyone around him. He's just one of those people that you just can't help but love, you know? Along the way, he encounters many historical figures and events throughout his life, including meeting some US presidents, as well as enlisting in the Vietnam War. Visual effects played an integral role throughout the film thanks to many CGI graphics that were all the rage back in the 90s during this time. Archival footage was used, and with the help of such techniques as chroma key, image warping, morphing, and rotoscoping, Tom Hanks was integrated into it, where he would film his scenes with green screens. You just had to be there, as these graphics were just cutting edge back then, making this film stand out from any others at the time. This film was a major success at the box office, becoming the top grossing film in the United States released that year, and earned over $678 million worldwide during its theatrical run, making it the second highest grossing film of 1994, right behind The Lion King. The soundtrack sold over 12 million copies worldwide, where it included many songs that defined American culture during the 20th century. Due to its massive global success, Forrest Gump quickly became a cultural phenomenon and is seen as one of the most iconic films ever made. It's also the film that really solidified Tom Hanks as one of the most important and influential actors of all time. Other notable film releases this year included True Lies, Speed, The Flintstones, Interview with the Vampire, The Crow, Four Weddings and a Funeral, A Low Down Dirty Shame, The Pagemaster, Stargate, Monkey Business, Clear and Present Danger, Richie Rich, With Honors, Leon the Professional, Angels in the Outfield, Shallow Grave, The Little Rascals, The Swan Princess, The Specialist, The Santa Claus, and Pulp Fiction, as well as many others. Like films, 1994 was a very stacked year for television. Throughout the year, we witnessed a wide variety of memorable TV shows that would go on to define the 1990s decade as a whole. Whether you were watching the Winter Olympics or the O.J. Simpson scandal unfold in real time, the television landscape of 1994 just had so much variety for everyone. This year saw the rise of many new scripted dramas, reality shows, cartoons, sitcoms, talk shows, game shows, and children's programming, as well as many others. Before shows like Grey's Anatomy and Scrubs, we had ER, which served as a precursor to similar shows that followed in its footsteps. ER follows the inner life of the emergency room ER of Cook County General Hospital, a fictionalized version of the real Cook County Hospital in Chicago, and the various critical professional, ethical, and personal issues faced by the department's physicians, nurses, and staff. The show aired on NBC from September 19th, 1994 to April 2nd, 2009, with a total of 331 episodes spanning 15 seasons, making it one of the longest running scripted medical dramas ever. It's also the highest awarded medical drama, winning a total of 128 awards during its run on television, which is just so impressive. ER helped launch the careers of many up-and-coming actors, including George Clooney, who portrayed the role of Doug Ross, alongside Anthony Edwards, Juliana Margulies, and Noah Weil. ER was a cultural phenomenon and is now considered one of the all-time greatest television shows of all time. It was the most watched show in television for 3 years in its second, third, and fifth seasons, with average viewing figures often exceeding 30 million per episode, which is just so crazy to me. Like, people were really watching TV back then. I mean, you had no choice, but you know, it's just crazy because, you know, we're in the era of streaming with Disney Plus and Hulu and HBO Max and Netflix and all of that stuff, whereas back then you actually had to watch TV. And if you missed your episodes, you missed your episodes. I guess you had to wait for the VHS tapes to come out later, but that's neither here nor there. The show just fit right in with the more story-driven episodic format style that was really starting to become popular during that time, making it one of the most memorable and defining series from the 1990s. In the spring of '94, Nickelodeon debuted their newest live-action show, All That, which lasted for a total of 10 seasons, making it the longest-running live-action show for the network. All That is a children's sketch comedy show that featured original short comedic sketches and weekly musical guests aimed towards a younger audience. Its sketches parody popular culture and were performed by an ensemble cast of child and teen actors. This show helped launch the careers of many young stars who would go on to dominate the entertainment industry, with big names like Kenan Thompson, Kel Mitchell, Lori Beth Denberg, and Josh Server, amongst many other names. Amanda Bynes joined the cast during the second season in 1996. I already know I'm gonna get a lot of comments saying that I forgot to include her. She just wasn't a part of the original cast, but she did get famous from this show. The first few seasons were actually filmed in Universal Studios Orlando, Florida, before being filmed in California, which is just so fun and iconic. Imagine going to Universal Studios to go on some rides and eat some food and have a good time, but then you stop and ask your parents if you can be an audience member for a hit Nickelodeon show. Like, how cool would that be to be slimed or to see like one of the game shows in real time? The 90s was a different time for sure. What once used to be a cool, colorful building filled with joy, imagination, and laughter has now turned into a dull and soulless office space, which is just so upsetting to me. Also, the theme song was performed by the legendary girl group TLC, which just has to be one of the best theme songs ever in my opinion. It just slaps. All that would go on to become a main staple on Nickelodeon for over a decade and has received acclaim for its diverse cast and impact on children media. All that crawled so that every other major teen sitcom that followed could run, making it one of the most successful and influential children's shows of all time. The biggest TV series that premiered this year was none other than Friends. Friends is an American television sitcom which aired on NBC from September 22nd, 1994 to May 6, 2004, lasting a total of 10 seasons. With an ensemble cast starring Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, Matthew Perry, and David Schwimmer, the show revolves around 6 friends in their 20s and early 30s who live in Manhattan, New York City. And I know what you're thinking. This plot sounds very familiar. That's because it's actually very similar to Seinfeld, just with more main cast members. The show is clearly inspired by Seinfeld, but is more of a direct copy of the hit series Living Single released a year prior, just the less seasoned version, if you know what I mean. They really fumbled the bag by not having a crossover special. Like, imagine an interaction between Joey and Overton. That would have been an iconic and just funny TV moment, but I digress. Besides being a Living Single and Seinfeld ripoff, Friends was able to outlive both, where it became a part of the zeitgeist of the 1990s pop culture landscape. The popularization of Jennifer Aniston's haircut titled The Rachel, the cozy and familiar feel of Central Perk, and Joey's catchphrase really made this show memorable and a fan favorite amongst many.
When I say, hey, how you doing?
As the series progressed, reviews became more positive, and Friends became one of the most popular sitcoms of its time. The show was breaking so many records, bringing in millions of weekly viewers, making it the hottest show and the hottest water cooler talk conversation. Critics commended the series for having consistently sharp writing, reliable characters, fun storylines, memorable guest appearances, originality, fashion, setting, and for the chemistry between the main actors. By representing young people who live unconventional domestic lives, it presented the idea that all you need are good friends, and that you can construct families through choice. It portrayed a new way of living life and developing relationships, which were not normally seen in conventional society at the time. The show perfectly encapsulated young adulthood in America during the 1990s, allowing many Gen Xers to see themselves represented on television in a way that just hadn't been seen before. Rachel, Ross, Monica, Chandler, Phoebe, and Joey became everyone's favorite TV friends, helping the show become a pop culture phenomenon overnight. Other notable series that premiered this year included Ah, Real Monsters, My So-Called Life, Ellen, Party of Five, Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, Touched by an Angel, New York Undercover, Gargoyles, The Secret World of Alex Mack, Gullah Gullah Island, Spider-Man the Animated Series, The Tick, Reboot, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Babylon 5, Real Science, The Busy World of Richard Scarry, My Brother and Me, Halifax FP, Blue Healers, The Magic School Bus, and Sister Sister, as well as many others.
Dad? Mom? That girl has my face!
1994 was a very stacked and exciting year from start to finish for the music industry. This year saw a wide variety of genres and artists receive massive success, including many hip-hop heavy hitters, pop divas, country crooners, R&B legends, as well as the continued success of dance and grunge music. Throughout the year, we witnessed the rise of many new artists, comebacks, as well as many new records being broken. This was the era where live concerts and soundtracks were selling just as much, and sometimes even even more than your traditional studio album. It was also the era of physical media, which meant going to the record stores to purchase the latest single or album. You just had to be there, as music just felt like one big movement back then. There was just a lot of competition this year, which meant we were getting fed really good. Well, I wasn't there because I wasn't alive, but you know what I mean. This year was just iconic from start to finish. This year is widely considered to be one of the most memorable and influential years for the music industry, with many legendary releases that have become pop culture staples over the years. Some of the hottest songs from 1994 included The Power of Love from Celine Dion, Fantastic Voyage from Coolio, Can We Talk from Tevin Campbell, Linger from the Cranberries, Breathe Again from Toni Braxton, You Mean the World to Me also from Toni Braxton, Please Forgive Me from Bryan Adams, Can You Feel the Love Tonight from Elton John, Hero from Mariah Carey, Bump and Grind from R. Kelly, Baby I Love Your Way from Big Mountain, All I Wanna Do from Sheryl Crow, Regulate from Warren G and Snoop Dogg, Again from Janet Jackson, Now and Forever from Richard Marx, Stay I Missed You from Lisa Loeb and 9 Stories, The Most Beautiful Girl in the World from Prince, Wild Night from John Mellencamp, and I Swear from All for One, as well as many others. In November of 1993, Swedish pop group released their debut studio album, The Sign, to worldwide success. To me, they're basically the ABBA of the 1990s, if that makes sense. Primarily a dance pop record, the album also features elements of house, synth pop, and reggae pop. The Sign is listed among the top 100 best-selling albums of all time by the RIAA, with sales of over 23 million copies worldwide, making it one of the highest-selling debut albums of all time, as well as being the highest-selling album of 1994. This album produced many major hits that dominated the year, including All That She Wants, Don't Turn Around, and the title track of the same name, as well as many others. The Sign actually ended up becoming the #1 song of the year according to Billboard, and remains their most successful hit in their entire career. Also, in late 1993, hip-hop group Salt-N-Peppa released their 4th studio album, Very Necessary. This album featured multiple major hits, including Shoop, their first top 5 single on the Billboard Hot 100, where it peaked at the #4 position, What a Man featuring En Vogue, their second highest peaking single at #3, and None of Your Business, amongst many others. What a Man, which featured fellow R&B group En Vogue, was the standout single from this album, where it went on to be one of the biggest hits of the year. Later that year, they gave a high energy and memorable performance at this year's MTV Video Music Awards. The album peaked at #4 on the Billboard 200 and has been certified 5 times platinum by the RIAA, with sales of over 5 million copies in the United States, making it the group's highest selling album to date. It's also regarded by many as one of the most successful female rap albums to ever exist. Being seen as an anti-establishment band, Green Day rose to prominence this year with the release of their 3rd studio album, Dookie, just a year after being banned from the legendary 924 Gilman alternative hotspot after getting signed to a major label. After several years of grunge's dominance in popular music with bands like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, Green Day brought a livelier, more melodic rock sound to the mainstream, later propelling the band to worldwide fame. Dookie received critical acclaim upon its release, although some early fans accused the band of being sellouts for leaving their independent label and embracing a more polished sound. Considered one of the defining albums of the 1990s and of punk rock in general, it was also pivotal in solidifying the genre's mainstream popularity. Some of the notable hits from this album included Longview, Basket Case, a re-recorded version of Welcome to Paradise, and When I Come Around. Basket Case actually gives me I'm Late to School vibes from one of those like cheesy Disney Channel like teen movies, you know what I mean? The album's influence continued into the new millennium and beyond, being cited as inspiration by many punk rock and pop punk bands, as well as many other artists from other genres. It has sold over 20 million copies worldwide, making it the band's best-selling album and one of the best-selling albums of all time. It has been labeled by critics and journalists as one of the greatest albums of the 1990s and pop punk albums of all time. Being the first artist to sign with Sean Puffy Combs' Bad Boy Records in 1993, aka the Notorious B.I.G, quickly became one of the biggest rising stars of the year. In September of 1994, he released his now iconic debut studio album, Ready to Die, to massive success. The album is autobiographical, telling the story of the rapper's experiences as a young criminal, and was the only studio album released during his lifetime, as he was murdered 16 days before the release of his second studio album, Life After Death, in 1997, which I have a whole video where I talk about 1997 and all of the pop culture moments. Peaking at the number 15 spot on the Billboard 200, the album was subject to critical acclaim and commercial success. 3 singles were released from this album, including Juicy, Big Papa, and One More Chance. These songs would go on to later become some of the most recognizable and iconic hip-hop songs ever made. The lyrics on the album were generally praised by critics, particularly for his storytelling ability. With the success of this album, Biggie was able to captivate audiences by his impressive wordplay, rhyme schemes, vocal delivery, heavy hip-hop beats, and versatility, making him stand out from other rappers at the time. The album was significant for revitalizing the East Coast hip-hop scene during West Coast hip-hop's commercial dominance in the early to mid-90s. With sales of over 6.3 million copies sold worldwide, the Notorious B.I.G. quickly cemented his legacy and status as one of the greatest rappers of all time overnight. To this day, it has been ranked by many critics as one of the greatest hip-hop albums, as well as one of the greatest albums of all time. R&B quartet Boyz II Men dropped their highly anticipated sophomore album, 2, this year to great success. With their tight harmonies and boyish charm, this album solidified Boyz II Men as one of the most popular groups of the 90s and one of the biggest boy groups ever. The album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 charts with 350,000 copies sold in its first week. It spent a total of 5 weeks at number 1 and was the 3rd best-selling album in 1995 in the United States, selling 12 million copies that year, which is just iconic. It contained the number 1 singles I'll Make Love to You and On Bended Knee, as well as many other major hits. I'll Make Love to You was the hottest song of the year, spending 14 weeks on top of the US Billboard Hot 100. The song made them the first artist to achieve consecutive double-digit chart toppers, with their prior single, End of the Road, topping the charts for 13 weeks, later equaling the record set by Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You for the longest run on top, a record which they held previously with the End of the Road. You Just Had to Be There, as I'll Make Love to You was just everywhere that year, becoming their signature hit. It was also the 3rd best performing song in the 1990s on Billboard, as well as ranking on Billboard's Greatest of All Time chart. Other notable albums that were released this year included Nas's Illmatic, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds' Let Love In, 9 Inch Nails' The Downward Spiral, Hole's Live Through This, Beck's Mellow Gold, Beastie Boys' Ill Communication, Oasis debut Definitely Maybe, Mariah Carey's Christmas album, Blur's Park Life, Aaliyah's debut album Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, Soundgarden's Super Unknown, Jeff Buckley's Grace, Pearl Jam's Vitology, Walt Disney's The Lion King soundtrack, Mary J. Blige's My Life, Brandy's self-titled debut album, Weezer's Blue album, Outkast's Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, Madonna's Bedtime Stories, and TLC's sophomore record Crazy Sexy Cool, as well as many others. Like I said earlier, 1994 was a pretty stacked year from start to finish, with some of the most notable pop culture moments to ever exist. Other notable things that happened this year included Nelson Mandela becoming the first black president of South Africa, which is actually pretty crazy because you'd think they would have had a black president since, you know, Africa is pretty black, but I digress. The Beanie Babies becoming available, Soul Asylum's music video for Runaway Train helping find 25 of the 36 missing children featured in the video, the Wonder Bra being invented, Bill Gates purchasing Leonardo da Vinci's Codex hammer for $30 million, San Francisco Highway Patrol officer and veteran of the US Army Kevin Briggs talks hundreds of people from jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge and ending their life, Johnny Cash's letter to his wife June Carter later being voted the greatest love letter of all time, the Channel Tunnel opening connecting England and France, the Rwandan genocide, NAFTA coming into effect between the US and Mexico, Woodstock's 25th anniversary, and the opening of one of the greatest theme park attractions, Tower of Terror at Walt Disney World, Florida, amongst many other things. So yeah, 1994 was a pretty crazy year with some very notable pop culture moments that we would never forget. I feel like 1994 was just the peak year of the 90s, you know, there was just so much iconic things that happened, from like the films to just all of the TV shows and like the music and all of the albums, the fashion, the sports. There was just so much going on where I just feel like this was just peak civilization. So I want to know from everybody, what did you think of 1994? What was your favorite film of the year? What TV shows were you watching this year? Do you have any nostalgic memories? Were you in high school this year? Were you in college this year? Did you just get married? Did you have your first child? Were you in elementary school? Or were you born in 1994? Did you watch Forrest Gump in theaters? Do you remember the hype of Lion King? Was Friends your favorite show back then? Did you own any of these albums on cassette tapes? What are your thoughts on the O.J. Simpson situation? And what are your overall thoughts on this year, 1994? Let me know down below. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. Feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more fun videos just like this. See ya! Ooh, I hit the note better than I did on my last video.